Okay.
It says we're live.
What was I talking about? Oh, they missed my introduction. Too bad.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We were just feeling really good about ourselves because we got our fire going, our oil lamp burning.
And no two white, I took the white pumpkins down so he doesn't have ears.
Everything was going really, really smooth, except, of course, technology, which is the sign of the times, right? So do you see us? There we are.
You know, we were just talking while he's doing that. Years ago, there was this cartoon, you know, when they were just one square cartoon, and it was my favorite because there was a pastor driving his car, and you're looking through the front windshield, and he's driving, and he's got his collar on, and next to him his wife, and she has no face. She just has a smiley emoji for a face. And I went, oh my God, that's the way it is, right?
It's the way it is. But
just smiling.
It's never a smooth takeoff. If we were a pilot, we would be bumping all
I don't
over
know. They may talk like we do before, too. No, I think they're listening to the tower.
Now that would be fun. We could pretend like we're drug smugglers and we're on us in a small plane and we're trying to take off.
I hope we wouldn't be talking. We would be listening to the tower directions. But yeah. I wouldn't get in a plane with you anyway if you were flying it. So that ain't going to work.
And I'm a nervous flyer, so that wouldn't be good. So we killed a couple minutes, and that gave us a chance for us to feel like technology is working, and a chance for some of you to even say hello. So we want to say hello back to Kathy Brissett and Donna Weislogel, I think, who's down along the Gulf, and Peggy Davidson, and
my friends,
Marlene Bervin, and Cheryl down in Whitney, and Fred and Joyce, and Jennifer Kozad, David Fox, Winnie McConnell. Hey, you're going to be in our opening prayer, and I'll just say why in a minute. Hola to you, Rhonda, and hello, Tina. Hi, Sharon Bell. So I'm going to start off with a quick prayer because it's been kind of an insane week for our church and in our own personal life. And an opening prayer seemed to fit our theme for the devotion tonight, because we're going to talk about how important it is right now, whether we think about it consciously or not, to draw upon a trait called resilience, what it means to be resilient and to be diligent also during this time. And we were reminded of that in our congregation and also in our own life. So the people we're going to pray for really quickly before we get rolling is, we just got a notice from Dorothy McLeod that she had to go down to the Arlington Memorial Hospital tonight, and they're admitting her. We don't have a lot of details to share, but we'll give you updates on the prayer chain. So we're adding her. We have a prayer of thanksgiving, and that comes from Winnie McConnell, who is a grandmother again. Congratulations and God's blessings to Winnie and all of her family. There's another girl in their family now. I don't know if it's pronounced Madeline, but I love the picture, and we're going to share that in our worship video, I think, this coming Sunday. And then also, Jason Owens in our congregation had kind of a close call this week. He is a speech therapist, and his hospital had an outbreak of COVID. His department, 4 people tested positive, I think, as of Saturday. So he was tested and just found out today that he was all clear, so we're thankful for that. But in our own family, we found out yesterday that our son David has now tested positive for COVID. So we are...
and he is in his apartment for 2 weeks, and I have to tell him today that we're gonna call you every day or text you. You have to respond. Sometimes he doesn't do that. We need to know that you're okay. So every day he has to text us back and give a report. Yeah. Plus, I told him to open up his apartment balcony door and get some air that
air in.
COVID doesn't like fresh air, and he said he would. So hopefully he's got his door open.
Yeah, and we're thankful that he doesn't seem to be seriously ill, has just been fatigued and has had this kind of hacking cough. And so we thought it was allergies, but just to be on the safe side, went and got tested and was really rather stunned, as we all were, that somewhere along the way he got exposed. So we'll be in quarantine. So a quick prayer for all of them and for all of us, really. So gracious Lord, we thank you for this day, and as it comes to an end, as we think back on all the things that have been a part of this day and this week, we know that there are always tons of ups and downs, celebrations and hardship. And in the midst of all that, you are present, and we're so thankful for it. And tonight we just want to lift up to you the following people: Dorothy McLeod, Jason Owens, Winnie McConnell and all of her family, and also our son David Foster. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be.
It's not.
I know. He's going to be fine. There's Nancy and Darlene Bond from California. Hi, Darlene. And
I can't see that far.
I know.
He's acting like I'll turn it so you can read it. It's oh my God, that's 3 feet away.
We wanted to share with you kind of a good thing that happened in a lighthearted way that gets us into the devotion, which is the evolution of an idea. So as I was thinking about passages in the Bible on which we could build this devotion, it occurred to me that Moses would be a perfect example of somebody who dealt with tons of adversity and hung in there. So he is like a poster child for resilience when you look at the Bible. So we've been having fun promoting each of our devotions, and we're trying to think, how in the heck can we do Moses? And nothing was coming. And then so finally, this is how one idea goes from good to great. I said, well, there's that awesome image of Charlton Heston in
Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments. Oh my God, what was the name of the movie? And he's holding the tablets and he's about to hurl them to the ground. And I said, so we should recreate that image. And so, of course, I'm always looking for the fastest shortcut to execute an idea. So I spent
I know, you turned to me and went, would you be Moses? And my response was no. Well, a little more than that. But no, I'm not going to stand in the backyard and be Moses.
Be Moses. Because obviously, I don't have a beard and can't be Moses.
I do.
So, but I thought, well, then you just flip the script and have a woman do it, and it would work, but she still nixed it.
I declined.
But then this is when the idea got better, because you are the one that took it from there.
Because I was looking at the picture of Charlton Heston, and I'm thinking, you need to get somebody, because we have a number of guys growing beards during this time, and oh my God.
Quarantine beards.
Yeah. Dave Jorgensen looks just like Charlton Heston / Moses. So I told John, maybe Dave will do it because he looks like him. And immediately you texted him.
Yep. I said, I know you're busy. I know you're both professors and you're trying to do virtual teaching and you have 4 kids and you probably don't have time for this, but just in case you might. And she said, we'll look at this.
Teresa said we're on it.
We're on it.
Instantly.
We are on it, yeah. And then so they came up with a brilliant idea and made it even better, because not only does David have the look, he took 2 pizza boxes that looked like tablets and held them up over his head. So it was like the perfect pandemic, 10 Commandments, mountaintop frustration moment. We
need to get all the bearded guys in our church right now and make a list with a picture like when you get them, screenshots. And then anytime we need
we have some
Old
good
Testament
quarantine beards
person, we can match them up and have a gallery.
We have a lot of guys that are really letting their hair grow.
Yeah, long.
Jeff Maxwell. So then this is the cherry on the top, and then we'll get right into it. The cherry on the top was we were having so much fun with Moses, and we were sharing this online to kind of get ready for tonight and let people know what we're talking about. And then today we get a message from Kathy Clark, who said, I want to drop something off at your house. Well, guess what it was? It was this huge book that's filled with gorgeous artwork and famous paintings, and it's called
Charlton
Heston Presents the Bible. and this is the best part. This is the best part. Kathy Clark, and I'm guessing maybe Randy was still living then with you, he was in their presence, or they were in his company, and he autographed it for them. So we have been given now this book with Charlton Heston's signature autograph. Now, how amazing is that? So, Kathy Clark, this is the second time you've blessed us with an amazing thing.
I'm just stunned that Charlton Heston did a Bible book. I don't know why. He made
it didn't say he wrote it. He presents it.
Oh.
But still.
Who knows?
Very awesome. So, thank you for that. Let's see. So, I'm going to read for you the definition of resilient, and then Ruth and I are both going to give you an example of somebody we know or have known and have had in our life that we think kind of embodies those qualities. And then we'll take a look at Moses, 3 different key moments in his life. So here's the definition. Being able to withstand or recover from difficult conditions. Being able to withstand or recover from difficult conditions. And the synonyms are strong, tough, and hardy. Strong, tough, and hardy. So I told Ruth, I'll think of one if you think of one. And we both ended up with family members, which I guess we're kind of blessed if we were able to see a quality like that in our own families. But for me, and we'll do this kind of quickly, but for me it was my mother hands down, because when she was young, she came from a very difficult family situation, a lot of abuse, so she fled home as soon as she could, got married young, had a family, and then went through some abuse from her husband, my father. And so it was just her and myself and my younger brother for a number of years. She never graduated from high school. She worked in a textile factory making $1.65 an hour. We lived in that little trailer, my brother and I sleeping in the only bed, her on the couch. We didn't have a car, and yet she kept us together and just worked her tail off. And it's just amazing. When I think of resilience and tough, I think of my mother. And this is one more quick example of how tough she was. Not so much maybe resilience, but tough. The one organized activity that she was able to somehow let me participate in was baseball, which is probably why I've always liked it. I played baseball as a kid all the way through. And I had a glove. She didn't have a glove, but she knew I desperately would want to play catch. So after working all day, sometimes she'd go out in the front with me and we'd play catch. And it was a hard ball, and I had a glove, and she didn't have a glove, and she still played catch with me. I remember as a little kid still, my God, she's tough. My mother is like the toughest person in the world.
She was.
So that was, so I got an up close and personal look at somebody who was resilient in life.
And I'm going to go with my father. My father grew up in South Texas on farms and was very German Lutheran, and decided to go to seminary. And he did not want to have a regular call. He wanted to be a missionary. At the time, he wanted to go work with Native Americans in New Mexico, Arizona. So he went to seminary and went on that track, and at about the time he was finished, the church came in and said, we would like to start some churches down in the Valley of Texas because we have no Hispanic-speaking churches. And so they convinced him to do that. He spoke English and German, no Spanish, and here he agreed. He went down for 3 months and learned the Spanish language at Pan American College, I think, in Edinburgh, if it's still there, and took a class and had to learn the language. And then he started these mission churches, and we lived in a compound in a purely Spanish-speaking neighborhood. I went to church in this little white clapboard church that was kind of on this compound where our house was, and all of it was in Spanish, and dogs would roam in. It was not exactly middle class, but it was quite a childhood. But he was determined, and he ended up starting maybe 4 or 5 churches in the valley. he eventually...
He was like Paul.
Yeah.
He would just
go,
churches.
we lived there, and he would start a church here, and he'd start a church there, and he'd find a layperson to do that, and then he eventually became the director of Hispanic missions for the Lutheran Church. The church paid for the first property and his salary, but then they ran out of money, and so he had to drum up funds to do this. So every year, my two sisters and I and my mom and dad would hop in the old car, and we'd drive up north to those great Lutheran churches in Iowa and Minnesota, I guess, Wisconsin, I don't know, up there. And we would do that tour of drumming up money. And we would go to these churches and put on this little, he would show slides and tell why, what we were doing. And the women of the churches usually came up with money and things, but my two sisters and I were dressed in little China Poblana dresses and had to sing Jesus Loved Me in Spanish. Here are these three blonde-headed kids. And we promoted so that he could have enough money to keep this mission going. And, it took a toll on him, but he was very driven and very resilient. And
very resilient.
He didn't just waltz into an already made church. He just designed a whole big one. And unfortunately, the stress took its toll because he died of a heart attack rather unexpectedly when he was 47. But I think about him, and he was driven and had that resilience to keep going even when things got really rough.
One of the things that Ruth and her sisters have, which is just amazing to me, he not only was overcoming language barriers and cultural barriers, which requires a lot of resilience and commitment, but he had people actually fighting his efforts, including the Roman Catholic Church, because they didn't appreciate his presence and his efforts to reach out to the community. It's like, and they have a letter written by a bishop or an archbishop in the Catholic Church warning their members to stay clear of this Alvin Kaler.
Because he was of the devil. That's not true.
That's right.
That's not true anymore.
But didn't they write that in the letter?
The really cool thing is because he was working with Mexico and Hispanic, and it was kind of new during the early 50s, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was going to do something with Mexico, and I guess heard about my dad down there, and so we have a letter written to my dad from FDR asking his advice on how to deal with them. That's kind of cool. My sisters and I found it accidentally when my mom died, and we lost it. We all were arguing over who was going to keep it, and I think God just took it right out of our hands because we all swear the other one took it and didn't tell, but we don't know where it is now. But that was kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
That's it.
Amazing ministry. And the need for resilience.
They didn't argue about what color the carpet was going to be at all.
No. So I'm going to read for you a couple of key passages from the Old Testament that describes, I think, in ways that we can all relate to, moments when Moses faced incredible adversity and it would have been easy to give up, but kept going, which I think a lot of us start running out of energy and motivation right now to just do the things that we normally used to do naturally. And there's some interesting connections there. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say to Gypsy, hello, and thanks for joining us, and also Mary and Pam Gober. So good evening, you guys. So here's the three places, right? The first one comes from the beginning when God makes it clear to Moses what it is he wants him to do. Take the people of Israel out of Egypt, out of bondage, out of slavery, and to begin that process by confronting the most powerful person in that part of the world, the Pharaoh. So leading up to Exodus 4, verse 10, when Moses realizes that God is asking him to go to the Pharaoh and to demand that he let their people go, he was filled with doubt. He didn't think that he was the right guy. He didn't think he was capable of doing what God was asking. I think a lot of us right now feel like we're not necessarily always up for the moment and doing what's being asked of us. And so this is how Moses responds. And there's a lot of conversations between him and God, very conversational. Pardon your servant, Lord. Pardon your servant. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. So I've never been good at this sort of thing. And even though you seem to be putting your hand on me and choosing me, that hasn't changed things. I'm still not the right guy. And so we just thought it was fascinating that when we are being called to do something that is overwhelming to us, it's not uncommon, and it was certainly true for Moses, that we feel inadequate to meet the moment. So I think we each had a quick example of it, and it both comes from church life in a sense. Mine is because over the years I must have asked 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 different people to get up in front of God's people and to share some things about whatever the church was working on at that time. They hear me all the time, and they need to hear each other. But 9 times out of 10, when I do that, they ask me to please look for someone else, that they don't feel like they have anything important or of value to offer or share, or even if they did, they wouldn't be able to get it out in a way that sounded coherent. They would be too nervous and just didn't feel comfortable in it. And sometimes, they maybe they did need to do something else. But there were a lot of times when, not that I put myself in the role of God, but I think...
You pushed them.
Well, it looked like it was me pushing, but I think it was the Spirit sometimes pushing.
No,
if something good came from it,
Yeah.
It was God's Spirit not relenting and saying, no, you are a person right now that my people need to hear. And oftentimes people would tell them that, oh my gosh, your words mattered so much and were important to me. So we don't always see it ourselves, but others do.
That's true.
So...
mine?
Then, yeah, you
This
witness
just
it in
came
a
to me
different...
today. Yeah. One of the things that John also kind of has pushed, including me early on, I was good at reading prayers, but I never prayed out loud just my feeling. I don't think I heard myself pray out loud till I married you. But anyway, he would just bug me, and I'd go, oh, I can't do that. There's something about hearing your voice pray for something out loud, because we usually do it in here, that's a little unnerving, but some of it's just what you're used to. If you didn't grow up with it, you're not used to doing that. So, but he's kind of pushed a lot of people at church to where now, when he opens it up for prayer, it just goes on and on because everybody's comfortable doing it. But in the very early years, when we were in the small church even, there was a member named
Sandra
Youngblood. Sandra must have been in her early 40s, maybe, late 30s.
Yeah.
And she had Down syndrome, and pretty severely. And we were sitting in a Lenten service, and John would open up a period of time. The candles would be on, it'd be kind of dark, and he would ask for prayers from the people there. And it was really hard for people. You could see most people are going, don't look at me, no eye contact. Their heads would go down really low, hoping that nobody would nudge them. And a few people would do it, and they would say their prayer fine and whatever. And they would be so nervous, and people would say, I just can't pray as well as John and Mark and Jonathan. I can't do that. And I'd say, the slicker it is, to me, it's those heartfelt ones that
Jesus
really...
said, don't pray like those
religious
professionals
like
on the
corner.
religious
professionals.
Blah, blah, blah,
You
blah,
know,
blah.
this is from your heart. I said, if someone's sitting there making a judgment call on, wow, that was the worst prayer I've ever heard. I've never heard anyone say that.
Ever.
And the more people stumble, sometimes the more meaningful it is. So I go, oh, quit thinking it has to be these glorious churchy words. So people were praying, and they were doing prayers and doing fine. And Sandra was sitting up in the front, and she had never spoken out during church, and not too often. And there was this period of silence, and you kind of wait, hoping somebody else is going to go, and it was pretty silent. And all of a sudden, everyone heard Sandra say very loudly, "I love you, Jesus. I really do." And that was it. And I'm not kidding you, there wasn't a dry eye in that moment. That was the most beautiful, shortest, simple prayer I think I've ever heard. And it was so genuine. And to this day, and that's been years ago, I think about that. And when I pray out, when John says, "Will you pray?" I don't know what I'm going to pray, but I think about Sandra and what she said, and it didn't have to be long and involved.
Flowery,
it was beautiful.
poetic.
She gave me a gift.
Yes.
God used her.
And that had to be 25 years ago. And you still remember
I
that
still remember
prayer.
that prayer.
Not the long ones.
I love you, Jesus. I really do. It's like, oh, what more do you need to say?
Hey, now talk about coincidences or maybe the Spirit bringing us together. I just saw that Jan outlasted Jim and is still up and with us tonight. So Jan, you're like exhibit A for what we just talked about, because even though you told me it's not something you feel comfortable doing, you were willing to talk about how our faith and hope and God's love for us has been helping you these last months. And we shared it in our worship video last Sunday, and it was beautiful. It was just right and just what we needed to hear. So thank you for living it out. We don't just talk it, we do it. So thank you. So here's the second moment of the three that we kind of related to. Hopefully you will as well. So there's constant pressure on Moses. I think, was it like 600,000 men, and then not counting the women and children? Some scholars think there were like maybe 2 million people. I can't fathom that. We can't even herd 600 people. How do you do 2 million? But so he's feeling constant pressure, and there was the pain of being criticized constantly and being rejected by the people that you're struggling and sacrificing so much to lead. And nothing was ever good enough. And this is so perfectly described in the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verses 4-6. You might recognize it. The rabble, that's how they describe the people. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." I love that. Manna, manna, manna. It's all we get. So they're no longer in slavery, but they just don't like the diet much.
And I have a story to relate that many of you, especially mothers, can relate to, that I've noticed that over the years our family's grown to, son-in-laws, grandkids, and when you feed them, and we used to do a lot of meals, but now, oh my gosh, I just quit, because this one doesn't eat ham, this one doesn't eat beef, don't like chicken on the bone, I'm a vegetarian, they're all valid, I'm gluten-free, I'm this, and pretty soon you look and you think,
they're
what am I going to
legitimate,
make? What happened? There's only one or two that will eat just anything I put in front of them. So you have to get a little, John does. You have to get really creative to the point that I said, we're just going to have to get together, but these meals have to go because they're driving me crazy. So many diets.
Right. So Ruth went with a literal kind of...
Yeah, I did.
How that gets lived out for us. For me, I'm always thinking of kind of the theme. What's the theme here? And it's hard to keep going if the people you're doing it for don't really seem to care or appreciate it. So if being resilient means that you're able to overcome those things that demoralize you. Certainly having the folks around you not seem to really care if you're working this hard or making these kind of sacrifices, that would be a challenge to overcome, that resiliency helps with. And for me right now, it's everyone in education. If you're in teaching, if you're in education right now, then you understand that you can stay up late at night and work your tail off, and there are going to be people sitting on the sidelines who have absolutely no comprehension or effort at how hard you're working, and
they'll let you know what you're doing wrong.
And criticize
a
it
lot.
And describe for you all the things that aren't working for them or their child. And I know it's frustrating for them. It's like teachers are being given an impossible task right now and then blamed for not making it possible.
And not making it as good as each parent wants it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now the last part for Moses. And this leads us up to the climactic image that we shared this week. So Moses is at a pivotal point, and they're starting to lose their way. They're starting to forget what God has done for them. I mean, they were out there 40 years, so a lot of folks have forgotten and have kind of, well, I'll just read it for you. So Moses goes up to Mount Sinai. I mean, he wants to be in God's presence. He wants to pray. He's looking for some kind of message, some kind of answer, some kind of direction, because clearly they're losing their way. But when he's up there on Mount Sinai, the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down. It's like, I don't know where the heck he is or what he's doing. So they say to Aaron, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses, we don't know what has happened to him." I love that.
He got old and crabby.
Yeah. So then it describes how Aaron says, okay, and gives the people what they want. He has them bring their jewelry and their earrings, and they melt the gold, and they make the golden calf. And during this whole time, Moses is having this conversation and prayer with God, feeling that God is about to judge them, and is still pleading on behalf of his people, even though he calls them a hard-hearted, stiff-necked people, and who have now forgotten what he has done, how God has led them out of slavery. And so he still cares about the people. He comes down the mountain with the 10 Commandments. This is what's going to hold them together. And as he gets to the bottom, as he approaches the camp, he sees the calf and the dancing. His anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. And I absolutely believe, and you don't even need a great imagination to think, that that would be one of those moments where you feel like quitting. Clearly he got frustrated again and again. Clearly he was angry, and yet he never stopped. He never quit. He never gave up. Hurling even the 10 Commandments to the ground, and yet still being able to get past even that moment. And for me, one of the things that I find so compelling about his story is that after all of that, it just wasn't part of the big plan that he actually ever even made it into the promised land himself. That was going to be a role given to another person. But he got him there.
Yep.
He got him there.
It's the journey, I guess.
Yes, there you go. And it took a tremendous amount of strength and resilience. So, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts about toughness, resilience, as you think about your week today?
Yeah, Eleanor Roosevelt said this quote that I always liked, that great things happened by people who weren't feeling all that well the day it happened. And I don't know, that's another one that stuck with me. And I thought, there are a lot of days that I don't want to do anything, or I certainly am not in a caring mood, or I don't want to handle an issue or problem, and lo and behold, one pops before your face, and you find, even though if you wait until you feel like addressing it, I don't think it'll ever happen.
Right.
You know, even if you have the headache or your allergies or your just want everyone to leave you alone, that's when resilience come in, because God goes, no, I need you now. And so
you just
you
keep
kind of,
pushing.
but I grumble, but I do it. Ugh.
Right.
I go,
So,
but you do it. And great things sometimes end up happening.
It's okay to feel inadequate. It's okay to grumble. It's okay to whine. It's okay and understandable that you feel like giving up.
But do it anyway.
And you keep on going anyway.
And if you need to throw something, which I've done before, I've broken a few things when I'm really angry. And you know,
that's true.
Moses had a precedent to get it out, but you do it.
Yes.
You just do it.
Yeah. So before Ruth prays, one last verse, which for me brings it together. I don't have a Mount Sinai to go to, but the Psalms, I think, lifts up a similar image. It's the direction you sort of look. Some people look down, and I understand that. It's a time when everything feels so heavy that you don't have hardly the energy to look anywhere but down. Some people look inward, and honestly, I think that's self-reflection is always a good and healthy thing, but there's not enough there. There's not enough within me to give me the kind of hope I need or the kind of strength I need. There's just not enough in there. There's just too much brokenness and inadequacy and too much weakness. I can't get what I need to be resilient by just looking in. So then the last direction is up. So you look up. And that's where I think Moses got his strength and resilience. And in Psalm 121 for us, it describes that natural posture of faith like this. So I lift my eyes. I lift my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. So I don't think we can make it through this alone. I don't think we do have the strength or the resilience, but fortunately, it's not just on us, right?
Right. You ready?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Dear Lord, sometimes we just get so weary, so stressed, feeling like there's so many problems, and many times there are, that we just sort of don't want to get out of bed. Just know that during those times that you have to be there with us and get us up and get us going and give us whatever fills our soul to be able to put one foot in front of the other and to finish the task. The journey sometimes gets long and mundane, and sometimes it's just plain old, like this for these days, because you want to be able to go out and to do things without feeling worry or concern for yourself and others. And it's a low grade kind of, and sometimes serious things happen and we have to face them during this time. So keep us resilient, even though that's a big word. Just keep us going. Help us to know that you're never far, you're with us, so that we too can do good things on days we're not feeling that good. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ruth Foster.
You're welcome, John Foster.
One foot in front of the other, my friends.
I saw this funny card once, and I kept it for years. I didn't even send it to anyone. There's this woman, and she's flat on the ground like this, and it goes, even if you fall down exhausted, you're still facing forward. And I think about that even when I'm down, at least my head's up there and it's still above my feet.
Forward.
Yeah, fall forward.
All right.
If you're going to
fall forward and keep looking up. Have a good night.
Bye.
Sleep well. Peace.